Okay, here I have the neck that we just cut out on the bandsaw. Here's a sample of the rough neck. Okay, so we're going to make this now look like that. And it's just a little bit of refinement now. Getting rid of some of this material down here, rounding it off, and then up into here, rounding this off. Right from the top, you can hardly see the difference. Profile now we can, and this. Now the question you're going to ask is, how far do I start doing this and make it look just like this? Now this is the finished neck. This is eventually what it's going to look like. Much more refined, cleaned up. But this won't happen yet. It'll happen down the road, a few months. Okay? So let's work towards this. I'm going to introduce you to a few tools. Chisel and mallet, rasps, R-A-S-P-S, rasps, and these called spoke shaves. First, the chisel and the mallet. I think this one works the best right up here, removing this material so that it's rounded off. Now I'm going to draw on here just a rounded semicircle. About like that. And I'm going to clamp the neck to the table. 2 clamps work best. Notice the handle is down as opposed to up where it's in the way. That secures it nicely. Now the chisel, come over here, Alex, so you can point down on this. So I'm going to use the chisel to remove this material here. Okay. You hold the chisel in one hand and the mallet in another. And you work it off a bit at a time. Okay. Now I want you to notice this chisel has a bevel on it, and it's flat on this side. The bevel goes in, and it's used the bevel is used to control the direction. So as I pull back on the handle, it pulls it out. If I were to put it like this, the tendency is for it to go into the neck, and that's not what I want. I want it to be able to come out, take off a little at a time, and notice, right, so when I'm chiseling it, the chisel is going in because of the direction of that bevel. That bevel wants to be straight up and down. If I want to go farther in, I have to pull it back this way. If I want it to go out, I go that direction. And I'm going to keep working it until I get to my line. About 1/8 of an inch. Now you can work the chisel with your hands only and not with the mallet. A little more challenging, but it can be done also. But you always hold the chisel with 2 hands. Your hands are either like this or like this. Never like this. Can you see the danger? So even if you're down here, you're slipping, you're going to slice yourself really badly. So you're going to use a chisel a lot on this project, and do so safe, you hold the work with clamps. You put both hands on this chisel so that it's out of the way. Now if you're going like this and you slip and you hit the table, who cares? It's a table. But you slice your finger off, that's a problem. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use to work both sides of this and clean off that portion here and that portion there. Okay, the next tool I want to introduce you to is the rasp. Not a file, called a rasp, R-A-S-P, and it's got very aggressive teeth. Now these two are coarse rasps. This one is a fine tooth rasp. We will use this later when we do the finished neck. For now, I just want to use the rough. Now this is a half round flat on top. This one's just a full round. And I find that that half round and this works super well. And I'm going to do it in this area especially, and in that area especially is where it works best. Notice I'm still clamped to the table. And this is a very effective fast remover of material. And I could do the whole thing like this. It's just not as fast, right? So I want to give you a bunch of tools that you can use to work this, and then you choose whatever works for you best. So all those chisel marks, I can now remove and smooth this off a little bit better. And whereas the chisel has a hard time on this curve, the rasp doesn't. It can handle it no problem. And I'm going to try the half round now. Okay, the question is, okay, McNeil, how much do I got to remove? Well, make it look like that. So I got to remove all this material. And you can see on this sample the tooth marks of this rasp. Through there, and onto there. Okay. The rasp works really well here and there. Now you can use it anywhere, but there and there works best. Now please note that the clamps are holding the work. All of my energy is into the rasp. If you're trying to hold your work and rasp, half your energy is being used by this hand, and you're not being very efficient. Let the clamps do the work, you do the rasping. Okay, I'm going to work this in like that. Little nub right there. Okay, the last tool I want to show you is the spoke shave. To get it set up for the spoke shave, I'm going to unclamp it. And the spoke shave works really well on the shaft. Put a clamp right on the heel, like that, so it exposes all of this. And I put the headstock right into my belly. Right, so now I can work on the shaft. Now let's talk about the spoke shave. Called a spoke shave because it was used to shave spokes of wagon wheels. And they would do a setup similar to this, where they have a piece of wood and then they would shave off that edge. So you can see, doing here. And very efficient, and I can pull it or I can push it. How do I know which to do? Well, whatever's more comfortable and which way it feels better. That's nebulous. Feel better. So sometimes when you're cutting, and that's the case here, I'm tearing the fibers. I don't know if you can see that on screen, but the fibers of this wood are being torn pretty badly. I can feel it as I come across, like it's kind of a rough. Whereas if I go the other direction, it's very clean. So I need to go this way on this side. On this side, I am not sure. It has to do with the grain, the way the grain grows. But and you can try to read the grain. Sometimes it'll tell you. Sometimes it won't. That feels pretty good pushing it also. Now I'm going to remove about from there to about there and round it off. Right? So I don't actually ever get to the surface there. I stopped shy, but then I round it over to about there and leave that top flat. So I'm going to draw another line right there. And just going to round to about there, round to about there. If you're not careful, you're actually going to start enjoying this. Now let me tell you about the other rasps, or the other spoke shaves. This spoke shave, the difference of these is the sole. They look similar, but on the bottom, this one's flat. This one has a curve, and this one's sole is curved that way. So both of these have application, right? This kind of has the similar shape. This one has a curve this way, which helps it in a tight curve there. However, the warning is these are tougher to use than this one. So I recommend you start with the flat shave, the flat soled shave first. And let's talk a little bit about this blade. It should be barely poking out. And it's hard to see, rather I can feel it. If it's out too far, it takes off too much material and it's really tough to use. You'll feel it. Call me over and let me help you set this up if you're being frustrated by it. It should be a joy to use, not a frustration. A little bit about its mechanics. I can peel this off. Right, it's just a blade set into this holder. Goes like that. And then these are used to advance or pull back the blade. And then this sits up on top, holding it in place. So when I adjust it, I don't even look at it. I do it by feel. Nice and gently run your finger across it to feel that blade. And I'm going to pull it back just a little bit so that those two are even and barely coming past the sole. And lock it in. Very nice. If you want a more aggressive cut, push it out a little bit. If you want a finer cut, pull it back. This is what you should be experiencing, is a nice curl like that. Okay, so now we have chisel for this area, for the bulk. Then we got the rasp, right here in the corners. Then we got the spoke shave. And then we got the rasp again there, right? It's not to say you can't do this. You can. You can use a chisel there too if you want. can do that. And work your way till it looks like this. Notice I haven't done anything to the back of that. Just leave it. I just want you to round off this here, called the rough neck. Then you're done.